Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video, and this is another baseball reaction. And quickly just want to say sorry for not posting yesterday. I was really busy, and then I started recording a video around 10ish, 10 p.m. and I was going to try and post two yesterday, late videos, but my green screen started bugging hard and I didn't really know what to do because, well, I mean, I've set it up now, so I didn't like know what I could do to fix it, and it was annoying me for about an hour, and then I just obviously couldn't post. I think it's fine now. I'm not 100% sure, but basing of what I've tested so far, it's fine. But I can't see my screen currently, so I'm not 100%. But hopefully it's all going well, because if it's too bad, I probably won't be able to post the video. But the video we're reacting to is Alex Rodriguez ruined his friendship with Derek Jeter, and then they became teammates. So I usually do SB Nation baseball videos that are like rewind, like sort of type videos of like World Series or like insane sort of moments that like maybe forgotten in history, but thanks to videos like this, we can remember them, we can like watch them over and learn about them. But this type of video is called Beef History, I think. And I've never done a beef history video before, and they seem quite intriguing. They do it for all sports, whether it be basketball, baseball. I think even some sort of soccer videos they do, which is crazy because I thought this was specifically just a American sports channel, but clearly it's not, and I rate that a lot. But this is the reaction that you guys wanted to see in the video you wanted me to watch, and I'm interested, man, because again, I've never done a beef history video, and I'm just intrigued. And yeah, man, let's just get into it, because I mean, so Alex Rodriguez ruined his friendship with Derek Jeter, and then they became teammates. So I guess they were friends, then they fell out, and something happened, and then they sort of had to become friends again. I'm not too sure, but you guys suggested it, and I'm interested to see. So let's just get into it and see what's about.
Are Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter in the 90s.
Young.
They were opponents, but loved each other so much that it bothered their teammates. Here are Rodriguez and Jeter in 2017. So uncomfortable that sitting through an interview together.
Oh, so they hate each other now.
What happened to this close friendship, and what replaced it? Was it beef? It was the furthest thing from beef at the outset. Jeter had just been drafted by the Yankees when a starstruck Rodriguez, still in high school, met him at a college baseball game in 1993. Rodriguez was drafted that year by the Mariners, and thereupon began the blossoming. Their careers blossomed as they worked their way into the majors. In 1996, Jeter became Rookie of the Year and helped the Yankees win their first World Series since the 70s.
Oh, man.
A-Rod became an All-Star, MLB batting champion, and AL MVP runner-up, but his Seattle team fell short of the postseason. And their friendship blossomed. A-Rod and Jeter would sleep at each other's homes when their teams played, and were so chummy during Mariners-Yankees games that teammates would tease them about it. In fact, Jeter got publicly chastised by teammate Chad Curtis for goofing off with the opposing A-Rod during a Yankees-Mariners brawl in 1999. But the two were inseparable. They were the cover boys in a 1997 Sports Illustrated about MLB's great young shortstops, and well, I can't mention that without showing you the famous shirtless shortstops photo on the inside.
Oh no! What the hell is that? That's in the 90s, yeah? God, would that be happening? I don't know, surely that would, them sort of pictures would happen now. But hey, they don't mind. I mean, back then that's probably the normal sort of picture for like a magazine or something. Maybe it's still a thing. I don't actually read magazines, but that's kind of funny.
I didn't expense this magazine, for the record. This is coming home with me. So things were going great, but an interesting dynamic was forming, a familiar one in the beef history universe. A-Rod was better at baseball. He managed to stand out even in lineups featuring monsters like Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner, and Edgar Martinez. But the Mariners lacked pitching outside of Randy Johnson and never went far, and A-Rod's national popularity perhaps lagged behind his individual excellence. Jeter was much more famous. He was young and good-looking in New York, which got him more attention from fans and press and Mariah Carey. Jeter's numbers were quite good in their own right, and he was part of a historically dominant Yankees team that won the World Series again in 1998, and then in 1999 and 2000 as well.
Jeez, so he's a successful player. But so was he saying he was the less sort of skillful player? He's the one winning all these sort of these titles, etc. Okay, so that's weird how it's sort of panning out. So
made that last World Series by defeating A-Rod's Mariners in the ALCS. And they were definitely A-Rod's Mariners at that point, having traded both Johnson and Griffey in the years prior. A-Rod was unbelievable in that series, and Jeter wasn't much worse. The Yankees won, and Jeets went on to be World Series MVP. Rodriguez became a free agent that winter, and the Yankees had interest in his services, though they'd want him to move to third base since Jeter had shortstop locked down. A-Rod said nah, he'd rather beat the Yankees than be a Yankee. They've already won enough. But Rodriguez did flirt with the crosstown rival the Yankees had just vanquished.
Is it to start the
World
beef
Series.
then, like this part?
Super agent Scott Boras came to the New York Mets not only looking for a massive contract, but for big market perks and fame-surpassing Jeters. A-Rod wanted his own office and marketing team, billboards galore, access to a private jet, and so forth. The Mets said, no, man, never mind. A-Rod wound up with the lowly Texas Rangers, signing what was at that point the richest pro sports contract ever. $252 million over 10 years.
I made a mistake I've made a few mistakes to do with like the wages, etc. Because I always see 250 million, and I'll be like, "Oh, is that their yearly sort of salary?" And I've said things like that, and you guys have sued me for it. But just so you understand, in soccer, it's always I'm pretty sure it's always posted as a yearly contract. As to why I've probably said those mistakes, but for that I apologize because now I sort of know when it says these sort of contracts, it's for their whole, like the 6 years of the contract, or the 10 years, or like 3 years, however, not just for one individual season.
With much less fanfare, Jeter was in the process of negotiating a new long-term deal to stay in New York, and the newly mega-rich A-Rod had some thoughts. On ESPN Radio in December 2000, Rodriguez speculated who, if anyone, might match his record salary and ruled out his pal Jeter.
Wow.
He didn't have the power numbers, didn't do the same stuff defensively. Rodriguez even threw out some guesses on the money for which Jeter would eventually sign, and the papers noticed. Jeter dismissed the comments. He wasn't trying to break salary records, he was trying to break championship records. Doesn't mean he wasn't getting paid, though.
That's what I'm interested in, actually.
Jeter agreed to stay with the Yankees on a 10-year, $189 million deal. While finalizing baseball's second largest contract, he simply stated, "I don't play for money, I play to win."
I'm sorry I keep pausing. I'll stop pausing it so much quickly, but what I'm getting from this so far is Jeter's sort of more like, I'm not going to say A-Rod or Alex Rodriguez isn't focused on winning, but he seems more focused on like himself being like a celebrity or like just earning money. And obviously, again, he wants to win, etc. But what I'm getting from Gary Jeter, he isn't as much for the money, and he's still getting bag loads of money. He's the one who is winning, and he seems like more focused on a certain thing, not on the fame, etc. Let's get back into it. I'm not going to talk too much, but that is sort of
everybody makes good money. Man, I wish I was good at sports. So now both friends were making yacht loads of cash, but Alex wasn't done talking. Esquire gave Rodriguez a big profile that ran around the start of the 0-1 season. Jeter's name came up a few times. He came up when Rodriguez grumbled about how sports writers like Mike Lupica ranked Jeter way up there while painting himself as a dickhead.
Oh, wow.
And Jeter came up again when, provoked a bit by Boras, Rodriguez said Derek had been blessed with great talent around him, never really had to lead, and was never the main concern in a killer Yankees lineup. All fair points, but maybe not the coolest thing to say to the national media about your best friend. As soon as the article published, Jeter was ambushed by reporters at spring training. He told them he'd have to chat with A-Rod about his intentions in saying stuff like that. Rodriguez, who was privately flabbergasted at how he came off in the article, insisted the comments were taken out of context and he would never dog his friend like that. He even enlisted the article's author, Scott Raab, to fax Jeter an apology, to which he got no reply. Rodriguez realized the blame would fall on him and drove from Rangers spring training to Jeter's house in Tampa to ask forgiveness.
Wow.
Jeter was dining out at the time and supposedly prolonged his meal to delay the confrontation as long as possible. The next day, Jeter reportedly looked miffed and still said he was confused by the whole incident, but told media that he and Rodriguez had talked, he'd given his friend the benefit of the doubt, they'd stay friends, and he had a feeling Alex was done running his mouth like that. So, not exactly forgiveness, but Jeter wanted more than anything to stop talking about stuff that wasn't baseball. This will be a theme.
That's fair.
And that did put a stop to things. A-Rod said he loved his friend, and he was indeed done talking about him. In his next game at Yankee Stadium, Rodriguez got booed, and then he homered to help the Rangers to a rare victory. And the interactions between the two at the All-Star game were only noteworthy because Alex introduced Derek to pop star Joy Enriquez, his date for the occasion, and she ended up Derek's girlfriend. After that taste of beef, a little slider and empanada perhaps, things had quieted down and they stayed that way for a few years. Jeter's Yankees hit their version of...
But he took his kind of girlfriend and they were still friends at that point. I thought the beef would sort of like go even further with that, but I'm guessing it's going to sort of lead on to something soon. But That's wild, bro. Taking your friend's girlfriend. I mean, you do you.
Drought, losing the World Series in 2001 and 2003 and failing to make it that far at all in 2002. Meanwhile, Rodriguez was putting up MVP numbers over in Texas, but the Rangers spent the whole time losing. After another crappy season in 2003, Texas realized paying one dude $1 gajillion wasn't worth it if they were just going to lose all the time. So they tried to trade Rodriguez to the Red Sox in a big, complicated deal that would have changed the parameters of his contract and netted the Rangers Manny Ramirez and John Lester. It would have been a big deal, but the players' union shot it down because they didn't want Rodriguez voluntarily diminishing the value of his contract like that. Texas was now ready to move on with A-Rod, but then the Yankees came calling by surprise. The Yankees were loath to mess with Jeter's role, even with a better shortstop available, but they did have a hole at third base after Aaron Boone suffered a freak offseason injury. So what about A-Rod joining the Yankees and shifting over a position? Kinda weird, but Rodriguez wanted to get the hell out of Texas and a deal was done. The best shortstop in baseball was now a Yankee, but he wasn't playing shortstop, and the guy who was playing shortstop maybe still had a grudge against him. The ensuing press conference, in which a kinda glum-looking Jeter dressed A-Rod in his pinstripes, was fittingly awkward. But the two of them were saying the right things, and Rodriguez took his move to third base in stride. Both players knew their relationship would be under scrutiny. Jeter claimed the worst thing that could happen for the local media would be for him and Rodriguez to get along. Rodriguez joked that paparazzi would have to see them holding hands and going to a movie to declare any beef dead. Jeter, ever wary of drama, tried to downplay any discomfort at spring training. No problems, let it go, it's over. Rodriguez also said any feud was behind them.
Media make things so much more like inflated, don't they?
He revealed to the public that drive he'd taken to Jeter's house for forgiveness in 2001. And he acknowledged that friends who had once been tied at the hip didn't have the same relationship anymore. Those were the kind of statements that would keep the media spotlight on the two of them, intentionally or not, and definitely annoy Jeter.
To be fair, that could be a tactic, like they're saying there. Like, he's saying these sort of things that like aren't completely 100% we're friends now. He's saying like these things like, yeah, we're good, but like sort of low-key slipping something in there to try and keep the media interested. So maybe it's not actually the media. This is like more of like them two wanting again the spotlight, or sorry, Rodriguez wanting the spotlight, or is it Jeter? I think it's Rodriguez, isn't it?
Throughout that first season, the two of them were careful not to betray any tension, and things mostly quieted down. But Rodriguez had some dramatic moments on the field against the rival Red Sox. In July, he provoked a huge brawl at Fenway.
Oh, that was him who did that one.
In October, he was arguably the face of the Yankees' historic ALCS collapse against Boston. He batted 2 for 17 during New York's losses in games 4 through 7.
Stinker.
That included the bizarre moment in game 6 when, instead of simply running out the weak grounder he hit with Jeter on first, A-Rod slapped the ball out of Bronson Arroyo's glove, screwing up New York's momentum that inning and generating a controversy that lasted well after Boston's eventual World Series victory. Noted asshole Curt Schilling drew unfavorable comparisons between A-Rod's lack of composure and Jeter's class. Months later, Trot Nixon said Rodriguez couldn't stand up to Jeter or some other longtime Yankee greats. Kevin Millar joined in too. The Red Sox deliberately and repeatedly used Jeter's name to pick on A-Rod. Jeter, naturally, was asked about those comments, but refused to stick up for his teammate. That was really the shape of this relationship for a few years. A-Rod generating stories, and Jeter trying so hard to avoid them. The two never went directly at each other, at least not openly. There was a flimsy rumor that they'd physically fought after a throwing error in a 2005 loss to Tampa, but the Yankees shot that down hard. The signs of tension came from indirect, passive-aggressive acts. Like in 2006, when Yankee fans booed a slumping Rodriguez, Jeter kind of shrugged off any responsibility to stop them. When A-Rod briefly broke that slump with a game-winning homer, Jeter didn't project enthusiasm. He didn't even want to talk about it. He was just like, ask him how he feels.
It's kind of like he doesn't want anything to do with him in a sense.
Later that year, when former Yankee Darryl Strawberry suggested Jeter ought to support Rodriguez more, he was like, what do you want me to do? But it's hard to distance yourself from A-Rod drama when you stand 10 yards away from him every game.
Exactly.
In August 2006, the Yankees were getting crushed by the Orioles, and a routine pop-up brought the two old friends together. Jeter stared 2 holes through the back of A-Rod's head and didn't even go grab the ball. Both players tried to dismiss the moment as a routine
Look how they look at each other like, I hate
Jeter
you, man.
stared 2 holes through the back of A-Rod's head and didn't even go grab the ball. Both players tried to dismiss the moment as a meaningless mishap, but New York
fair.
management had enough. Yankees manager Joe Torre gave his players a talking to, GM Brian Cashman pleaded with Jeter to fix his body language, and hitting coach Don Mattingly, who'd hated teammate Wade Boggs when they were both Yankees, told Jeter, "I faked it with Boggs, you have to fake it with Alex." Cashman said the same thing, just fake it, pretend to be supportive. But Rodriguez kept making it difficult. He hit so terribly in the 06 playoffs that Torre slid him to 8th in the lineup. At spring training the following season, A-Rod said he was a big boy, he didn't need support. And he admitted that he and Jeter, once blood brothers, didn't have as great a relationship as they used to, but it was no big deal. And with that out there, he requested that media stop asking about Jeter so he could stop lying and saying they were still cool. Jeter publicly said he didn't have a rift with Rodriguez and it didn't matter anyway. But he also implied that he resented how A-Rod was talking about personal, non-baseball stuff out in the open, and privately was like, why doesn't he just shut up?
I can
But
understand
shutting
that
up
as well.
just wasn't A-Rod's thing. That season, he generated another controversy by shouting at Blue Jays third baseman Howie Clark, causing him to let a pop-up drop.
Oh,
Joe Torre
wow.
publicly
The
scolded
cheat.
A-Rod for yet another childish, impulsive act, something everyone knew he'd never have done to
He's
Jeter.
such a shithouse.
Of course,
I love
Jeter
it.
never needed
I
that
love
kind
it.
of scolding. He was the homegrown, attention-dodging, man-of-the-people class act with a fistful of rings, not the dramatic, me-first carpetbagger who'd brought no further glory to a city accustomed to it. A-Rod also won his second MVP as a Yankee that season, but Torre left that offseason, and after a typically rocky public negotiation, A-Rod re-upped with another gigantic Yankees contract.
God.
In 2008, the Yankees missed the playoffs for the first time in Jeter's career. And in 2009, things got worse. Writing for Sports Illustrated, Selena Roberts reported that Rodriguez had tested positive for
Bro, this
steroids
guy
years
is so
prior.
like
A-Rod
up and
admitted the
down.
fact in a press conference attended by his distraught-looking teammates. Jeter professed support for his teammate.
You know, as teammates, we're gonna help him out. You know,
Support him
realize it's
for
gonna
the
be
first time.
difficult.
Okay. I say for the
Our
first
job
time,
is to try
but
to support him
in
as he
this
tries
sort
to
of
get back on the
timeline.
field.
But said he'd cheated himself and lamented that another individual mistake would reflect poorly on the league's many non-using players.
I can't emphasize it enough. Everybody wasn't doing it.
It was yet another episode of Jeter feeling like he had to answer for controversy generated by his former best friend. And then A-Rod got hurt, missing the first month of the 09 season recovering from hip surgery. He had relationship controversies swirling, a steroid scandal,
Madonna.
and now an injury to recover from. This was his low point. And it might have been the best possible thing for his working partnership with Jeter. Rodriguez returned from injury with a bang, homering on the first pitch he saw, then helping completely turn around a team that had been losing without him. Perhaps just as important, he returned a changed man in Jeter's eyes. A
Okay.
humbler, more focused, better teammate. The rest of that season was a parade of joyful moments. Jeter broke Lou Gehrig's Yankee hit record in September, and there was A-Rod gleefully congratulating him. Both players dominated the ALDS against the Twins and reveled in each other's excellence.
Wow,
Then
so
they
they're
were
back-
seen dining together with their famous
Oh,
girlfriends
mad.
to celebrate. The two went on to lead New York to a World Series win, and their renewed friendship only grew from there. Each faced separate drama before retiring, but
That's really interesting how like so this all sort of came from the steroids and I guess the injury maybe. Like they've had this beef for what, an ongoing for what, nearly 10 years? And then that sort of maybe like flicked the switch in Rodriguez's head and maybe even Jeter's as well. And it's sort of like one bad thing has turned into a good thing in a sense. But I think we're going to find out because there was that interview at the start. Something else is going to happen. And I'm really intrigued what will happen next because they seem to like be on the right path. It's like, how's
together
it, right?
they'd earned a ring. Feud over. Or is it?
Oh, so they won together.
In 2011, Ian O'Connor released The Captain, a biography of Jeter that details many of the stories I just told you and so much more about Jeter's private animosity for his one-time best friend. Jeter publicly disavowed the book, and A-Rod never really acknowledged it, but it definitely rekindled the idea of Rodriguez as a selfish diva craving validation and Jeter as a fortunate curmudgeon unwilling to help him.
Wow.
And the post-book years have seemed icy. New York Magazine profiled Jeter in 2014, and when prompted to talk about A-Rod, Jeter shut down that whole line of questioning. When A-Rod finally retired in 2016, Jeter reached out and didn't hear back promptly from Rodriguez, who said his inbox was full.
Cool.
And then
Oh,
there's
man.
this. Both players attended a big charity event in 2017, Both agreed to a CNBC interview, and then both realized with great discomfort they'd be interviewed together.
That is so sneaky from the CNBC. Things like that I find really, really sketchy. I mean, for the viewers, obviously they're gonna love that, but for them as people to sort of be thrown in like that, and if they genuinely had no clue that they'd be doing it together, that is some sneaky stuff, man. Because this is, you can obviously see they're very uncomfortable. That's weird, but I mean, I guess that's just how TV is, isn't it, and how the world works.
And asked about the relationship. Their responses were all deflections, and they were so awkward.
This is a treat to see you two together. Now, since you both hung up the jerseys, you guys are friends now? Is that what's going on?
Shortstop, third base. That's exactly how we were back in the day.
Yeah, just together, right? Both of you.
Yeah.
Side by side. But you greeted each other's warmly. The press made a little thing about the back and forth between you two. Was that real or serious ever?
You're bringing up stories from about 20 years ago, huh?
Yeah.
It's a History Channel.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Afterward, Jeter was reportedly beside himself
very,
angry
very
about the
awkward.
interview, in which he was also grilled about potentially buying the Marlins. That same month, A-Rod was one of the few Yankee teammates absent at Jeter's jersey retirement. He claimed to have been elsewhere with his mom since it was Mother's Day, but didn't quite answer whether or not he'd been invited to the event in the first place. And that's about where things stand. As their post-playing careers continue, A-Rod and Jeter will praise each other publicly, but the air between them still seems frosty. And how could it not be?
This is a very good video.
When they were young and new and unsullied by fame and fortune, it was easy to be friends. But their reputations diverged almost to opposite poles, and it rankled Rodriguez enough that he said some things he could never take back. A-Rod's career got messier while Jeter worked very hard to keep his quiet. But then they became teammates in a massive media market, and even the slightest crackling between those two opposite personas was magnified for everyone to see. If anything, this beef history is one of triumph, of estranged friends and foils who went through a lot of crap before finding a way to win together. But perhaps a World Series victory isn't enough. It may be a long time before Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter fully unpack their past, let alone get over it. But once they do, I think they'll find that, however privately, however intermittently, they've had quite a bit of beef. Thank you so much for delighting in my...
Man. I need to do more beef history videos for sure, because these are very, very in-depth, and it's really, really, again, it's intriguing to see like how these things happen between guys who, when they were younger, they were clearly like friends. And wait, was it at the start? Did Rodriguez look up to Jeter? Let's just go to that bit. Something along those lines, right? I think it was something along those lines, and then like obviously started playing in the MLB. But I mean, it's interesting how these things happen. And what was I going to say? Like, what would you say was the major catalyst? Because what I sort of got was Jeter, again, like Jeter was like the more sort of laid back, sort of just focused on the sport kind of person. And Rodriguez just wanted the fame. And although he was possibly focused on the sport somewhat, he was focused on other things as well. And obviously like the drug or the steroids thing that happened in his career. And it's just like, man. But I mean, would you say it's the sport that did this? The media did this? Or just like sort of growing apart in certain ways? Like, maybe the rivalry of sport sort of led to it, because obviously they were playing for different teams at a certain point, and all these sort of sneak dissing sort of comments. But let's see what people are saying of this in the comments, because I'm intrigued to see what baseball fans, pure baseball fans, like have an opinion on this, because they're the ones who really sort of understand us like more than anyone really. A-Rod, I get paid more. Jeter, I win more. And what is the people's general perception? Like, who is the bad guy and who is the good guy? Because what I get from this is A-Rod is sort of the bad guy, and Jeter is the good guy. But like, I don't want to like trigger someone. Like, if you genuinely think the other way, tell me why, because I'm very, very interested in like the overall sort of opinion on this. Jeter is jealous of A-Rod's talents. A-Rod is jealous of Jeter's fame. Hey, so that's a very good way of putting it. Actually, that's a very good way of putting it. How the fuck did you have Ken Griffey, A-Rod and Andy Johnson not win a chip? To be honest, I can't even understand that. Imagine Jeter's relief when he found out Alex Rodriguez was suspended from all 2014 so he could play a season in peace. I mean, yeah. But still, this was a very, very interesting video. And again, I appreciate the suggestions, genuinely. Hopefully the green screen worked well, because I'm not too sure. I've not actually seen it yet. And I'm going to watch this straight after, and hopefully it's gone well. But yo, just suggest more things, and I'll react to them in due time. Until next time, like, subscribe, peace.